Hey listeners, welcome to today's episode of Show Me Your Hustle. I am sitting down with Paul. Paul, I'm excited to hear your story. I interviewed you last year on Show Me Your Stack and really following up on like how your company was formed. And I want to hear your story today. So tell us about yourself.
Okay, so I've got one of those stories that starts at the beginning and ends at the end. And what I mean by that is the end is the beginning, right? And so I don't know if you can all kind of cast your mind back to kind of leaving school. I don't know if in the States you guys have something called a careers officer, which is someone you talk to about what you might want to
Yeah,
do,
we call them
right?
like guidance counselors.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
right, right. So in the UK, you kind of speak to them when you're about 15, 16. You start talking to them, and because I'm old, when I was leaving school, it was before the dot-com bubble, and the web was becoming a thing. Like websites were a thing, right? And I was like, I'm gonna go and do this website thing. And my careers officer happened to be like my great aunt. So she then says, "Oh no, you're not. Your mum and dad are in banking. You're gonna go and do banking, Paul." And I was like, "Okay, great. I'll go and do that then." So off I go to college. I'm doing like my A levels, and during that term, I got like a summer job at stockbrokers, right? And so
Okay.
I'm doing like some summer work, and whilst I'm on that job, recruiter calls up and says, "Do you want to go and interview at JP Morgan?" So I'm like,
Okay.
"Absolutely, yes, I do." And I go and interview there, and the guy offers me the job. He says, "Look, Paul, if you're like sort of contracting right now, you're not the sort of person we'd typically hire because we typically only hire graduates. But there's something about you I like. Come here for 3 months, and if it works, we'll offer you a job." And so they offered me a job inside my first month, and I got like a ton of money, which was great at that point. And so I just did like JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch. I did like the big investment banks.
Yeah, right.
But within sort of 6 or 7 weeks of starting my job at JP Morgan, I'd automated it. Now I didn't do that myself, but we're kind of doing like this interbank reconciliation. They've got like three entities. They're doing tax arbitrage trading. And I was like, we're printing off a lot of paper to do a lot of nothing to find out if there's a broken balance between two different systems. Why don't
Right.
we just have a report that just reports off and says, "Hey, Paul, it's this account with this much money is the break." And you're like, and
Yeah.
so they were like, "Oh yeah, we've never thought of this before." I'm like, really? There's four of us killing people here, so like, can we do something else about it? And so he goes, "Go off to the IT people, see what they say, and if it's going to cost a lot of money, I'm not going to do it." So I go and
Yeah.
see this guy, and he says, "Yeah, it's probably going to take me like 2 hours to write the script. I'll be fine." And that was it. And so we saved around 54 weekly man hours a week with that particular thing. And I started to realize straight away that maybe this tech thing's for me. I know what it should be doing. I might not necessarily be able to write a line of code at this point, but I definitely know what it's doing. So over the course of my career, I end up going to the big banks. I'm always getting involved somehow in big tech projects, either in onboarding new software or things like that, right? As well as doing my normal day-to-day job. And then I end up, well, I'm about 27, so it's probably 2007, 2008, around that period.
Yeah.
And I'm at UBS, and eventually I'm starting to get this hankering to go and work in FinTech. And
Yeah.
FinTech at that point was like changing legacy banking systems. So I'm now doing these projects, and I say, "Right, I want to go and work in change the bank." And they're like, "No, you're not going to go and do that. You don't have a degree." And I said, "But I don't have a degree and I'm running a swaps desk. So, like, what's the difference?
Yeah.
Surely if I can do this." Anyway, the long and the short
Right.
of it is they called me out and said, "You're not going to go and do that." And I said, "I'll leave." And they didn't believe me, so I did. And then the world blew up because all the banking systems fell apart in 2008. So I left at the
Yeah.
worst possible time with a mortgage. And yeah, it was definitely stressful. So I then open up what I thought I would do is open up my own fintech consultancy, and I ended up opening up a publishing business because I'm a really strong copywriter, or I'm a really strong writer anyway. It's like something I'm good at.
Yeah.
And sort of within 6 months, we realised that selling advertising space to pay for a magazine is not the way forward, and we pivoted and became an e-commerce agency. Ended up working with Nike, Adidas, Sky, some really big brands, and I actually thought I'd made it. Spent far too much time in a pub and absolutely crushed the business. So that was a big learning. I bounced back. I'm running another agency. One of our clients asked if we can build them a gaming app. And I was like, yeah, we can do that. iOS gaming app. It was called My Vote. And it was basically you sign in for Facebook and you're playing games against people that fit your demographic profile. And then you're choosing to either answer with your demographic or against them. And based on it was all sports questions, right? And it was the most ungainly game on a mobile you could ever have, right? It had 3 questions a day. I mean, can you imagine that in today's world? What the hell am I going to do with that? Right, so those guys then buy me out of my own business, and I become a de facto CTO and a product manager, and I'm still running marketing for this thing. They get some kind of radio celebrity host from the UK involved, and he's kind of like trying to big it up on the radio in the morning on a sports channel, and I then sort of said, this is like a data mining app. It's not really a game. And so instead of doubling down on the data mining side, they tried to make it a game of multiple games, which then really killed it. And so they lost their funding, and then sort of 18 months later, that journey was over. I end up, 2014, I become the #1 influencer on insurance technology on Twitter, according to the Rise social media leaderboards at that point in time, which was weird because it was just based on the amount of activity, not really anything more quantifiable than that. So just because I was tweeting a lot, I just wrote #1, which was cool. And then I didn't follow through on that because I'm not really great at social, and I don't want to be a big social influencer. Maybe I don't know. And then consulting again for a couple of years. 2017 opened what is now Arise GTM, and for the last 8 years now, I've been running go-to-market strategy for FinTechs and SaaS companies across the world.
Yeah. I love it. Paul, your story is wild. It's like, I love it. So let's dive into your current with Arise GTM and what you're doing there. Yep. What's been your big hurdle over the last 8 years with growing this?
Me. I have to admit, right, the biggest hurdle in this business has been me. I've just wrote a book called Go to Market Uncovered, which has been published with Wiley, and that is really the culmination of my journey between sort of leaving banking and all of the work that I've done today. It talks a little bit about my journey as a founder throughout this business and the ups and downs, but also a go-to-market strategy that I have trademarked, that is our proprietary methodology. So that became something because we kept going up to about 6 or 7 people and hitting that ceiling and then bouncing straight back down. And I know people say there's a ceiling at 5 and then there's one at 10 and there's one at 15, and they really do exist because all of a sudden 5 people feel quite close-knit. You try to build towards 10, you build new people in, and the thing with hiring, it's never straightforward. And quite contrary to popular belief, as a business owner, you have to be quite ruthless. And it's like, hey, I'm going to try and help you as much as I can. I'm going to give you the tools that I can. I'm going to try and enable you as much as I can. We've got learning budgets and all these things, but you've got to meet me halfway. And if you don't meet me halfway and help me on the journey, I'm going to fire. That's it. I've got to protect, an amount of revenue that, I've got my own life and family to support. And so that's really hard. And then we talk about that. But the crux of this conversation, to go back to your question, was what was the biggest hurdle? And the biggest hurdle was most of what was really important was inside my head and not down and documented. So I'm explaining to people how to do things, but there wasn't the documentation and the provision and the enablement wasn't there. Yeah, that was a big hurdle.
How have you fixed that? Where are you at with that?
Yeah, we definitely fixed it. And Super's part of that journey, which is great because what happened was, as I said, in during COVID, when I just cut the team and said, listen, I'm gonna have to just start this whole thing again. I
Yeah.
spent the early part of COVID documenting everything, so getting it out of my head and getting it down into
Mm-hmm.
processes, building that
Right.
into kind of what would you call them? Templates or playbooks inside a project management system, so it become
Yeah.
easily accessible and repeatable and scalable. And then
Right.
obviously that then leads to the Arise go-to-market methodology, which is now our proprietary methodology, and
Mm-hmm.
into a book. And now we've gone from the project management tool to building that directly into HubSpot, which is now hosted in Super. So we're able to deploy
Mm-hmm.
that, really
Right.
quickly, as
Right.
you know, because Super's your baby. And yeah, like that's where we are now.
I love that. Um, what's been the biggest misunderstanding? You fell into everything, you're on your path, and you're like, oh shoot, I did not understand how to
Yeah,
X.
I, I, I think I definitely suffer with shiny object syndrome. So I think in the past I've been when things have got a bit tough and I felt like they weren't working. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like I didn't. It's not that I didn't double down. I didn't double down in the right way. So it's like, right, let's still maintain doing this thing, but let's bring this
Mm-hmm.
thing in because this could open up another opportunity. And when that wasn't quite working, there was quite a lot of that. And you've seen that in our transition over the last probably 3 years would be really important to say. So we went from being a typical agency offering everything under the sun,
Yeah.
which like I hate that full service term now. Then you
Yeah.
became right. We work with these five business units. So the
Yeah.
website went from we would have offer all this to we help these five groups of people, and
Mm-hmm.
that was using our own methodology on ourselves, and then we ran it again this year, and so when we rebranded,
Mm-hmm.
we now have four things, and what we did, we looked at what people generally ask of us, and it was
Yeah.
like, oh, we do these four things, and these are the four things that we do really, really well. So let's pivot again, and it's
Right.
go-to-market strategy, revenue operations, ABM, and in a weird way, when enterprise tech spin out a new
Mm-hmm.
startup, they come and speak to
Yeah.
us because they don't know how to be a startup anymore.
Right.
So that's it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What with that, this question leads into that a little bit. What is your one prediction for startups in the next 18 months?
There will be no such thing as a moat anymore. So have you heard that term? So they say when you
Yeah.
start up, what's your
Yeah.
moat? What's your protection? AI
Right.
took everyone's moat away. It is like the dehydrator of moats.
Right.
If you look at what you are now capable to do, the ability to write code, if you
Mm-hmm.
feel that this thing that you built has some sort of moat, maybe because you put AI in it or whatever you did, you
Right.
got companies that are much bigger than you that might just need your functionality and they don't even need to buy you anymore. They can just say, let's get AI to write the code for that thing that fits inside our tool, test it, integrate it, and they're back in market. And I feel that it's going to be all about first mover advantage and then making sure you've got the funds effectively to back the growth. That's what I think is
Right.
going to happen.
Interesting. I am excited to see. We'll have to touch base in 18 months and see how things are going. But one last fun question for you. When you were growing up and you were talking about meeting with your counselor, did you foresee yourself being a founder as a kid?
Do you know what? I don't know because look, today, for example, today is the 24th of April, right? And I posted on, I went to a meeting last night, a product marketing meeting in London,
Yeah.
and I was like asked to bring the book along, I'll go along, and it was really weird, right? So during my day job, if you want to call it that, I am selling corporate or if you want commercial services to corporates, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden, I've got a stack of books and I've got my Monzo on my phone, and I'm tapping people's cards, and I'm selling units of books, right? And what it reminded me of is I got my first job when I was 13, and I worked in like a market, and I worked on a stall that sold electrical goods. And today I went and found like a picture from the 90s of when I had this job of that market. And I posted on it, like, it's such a humbling experience to go from being this guy that's got a decent reputation. I've got some authoritative like skills behind me. I've got a book published, and now I'm standing in a room full of people that don't know me, selling big books like the guy that comes and sells you his CD on the street, right? And it's like, wow, what a transition, but how humbling
Yeah.
to do that. And I feel like that was that's the answer to that question.
I love it. Well, thank you, Paul. I am excited to watch you keep growing and excited to see you conquer more things this year.
Thanks, Ashley. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on.